Oh, Corey.
Good afternoon. We'll give people a couple more minutes to join in. I think we had about 10 that had signed up for this time. So we'll give them about 2 more minutes and then we'll get this started. So good afternoon. Thanks everyone for taking time out of your day to be part of this integrated master plan focus group. This is our second week of sessions. We had a session back in December. We have about 9 meetings scheduled this week that are all going to be very similar to this one, just with different players. I'm Corey Styron. I'm the Director of Community Services. And we're embarking on a really interesting process and challenge of doing an integrated master plan that pulls all the services under the Community Services Division into alignment. This includes parks, recreation, open space, social services, the library, our cultural offerings. PROS includes the ice rink, the aquatic center, our recreation programming. So we're really trying to look at a very inclusive, integrated, aligned plan that gives the department direction, but also provides some expectations for our community and stakeholders out there, to be honest. Typically, these are done under a Parks and Rec banner only. And most of them are heavily focused on how to build stuff, and that's not really what we want to get out of this one. If those things bubble up, that's great, but we're really looking at how do we improve our offerings to the community across our platform. We did this as a competitive process through an RFP. Greenplay LLC was the awarded vendor, and on January 1st, they merged with Barry Dunn, another consulting group, to create what I think is probably one of the largest and probably most equipped consultants for doing this very type of work. There's also a component from a health aspect with GP Red that made this marriage what I think to be very advantageous. We have Pat O'Toole and J.R. Clanton here today from Barry Dunn. So they're going to be leading you through this process. This is really early in the game, folks. You're group number 6 to talk about this. We're not anywhere near the beginning of decisions being made. We're still finding out needs of the community. On Thursday evening at 6:30, there is a community webinar debrief that Barry Dunn will come back and kind of share the high level themes that they have picked up from our community over the some 13 meetings that they would have had by then. And share that information, kind of get a pulse check and go on with the next steps. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Pat and JR. They've got a little brief informational, and then they want to get some feedback from you. So welcome back, Pat and JR.
Great, thank you. And as Corey said, I'm Pat O'Toole. I'm the project manager for this project. Been with Greenplay for almost 20 years, and prior to that, for almost 20 years, I was a Park and Rec director at 4 different agencies. So Greenplay kind of comes from a practitioner and operational perspective. And then I'm going to let JR introduce himself, and then I'm going to share my screen, and we've got a brief update on the process, and then we've got some questions that we want you to respond to. So JR.
Thank you. I'm J.R. Clanton. I'm a consultant with Barry Dunn. I specialize in municipal finance as well as parks, recreation, and libraries. My most recent stint as a practitioner was I spent 5 years as the library director for Westminster, Colorado.
Great. Thank you, JR. All right. Get this in. All right, JR, am I showing the?
Yeah, so you need, yeah, swap. Mm-hmm.
Good to go?
Yep.
All right, great. Now we'll make sure they advance. Did it disappear on your end? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So let's try this again. That was supposed to advance, not disappear on me. Well,
let's try doing the view from beginning. Otherwise, I can share mine.
All right, let's try this again. From beginning. Resume. One of the others should be working.
You know, we can actually see the content just fine on that. Why don't you just go through it like that? Just go down.
As long as it will advance. It's not advancing that way either, JR. Oh, it's the last slide. Let's try this. It still should have worked from the beginning. It's not. So, all right. See if the PDF will show. Nope. I apologize here. You'd think I was a rookie at Zoom. I spent half my life on Zoom.
Would it be easier for JR to throw his up and go from
Yeah,
there?
let me try one more time here. And there we go. All right. Finally, what'd you do to that when I sent it to you, Corey?
Nothing.
Okay, a little bit about our process. This is basically a start to finish, pretty detailed infographic here of our plan and showing the 4 stages of public engagement, which we are, where the circle is, just starting the process under information gathering. So our first touch with the public. Previous to that, we had a couple of kickoff meetings to align this project, set some dates, make sure everybody's on the same page, those types of things. So in this information gathering, between the focus groups and interviews, we will have a statistically valid survey after this that will go out randomly to the public and then also be online for everybody to participate. In March, we're going to have our crew come down and do an inventory assessment of all the amenities and facilities in the system. And that will help them through GIS component-based mapping, do a level of service analysis. And then we're also going to do demographics and the demographics, we're going to do sub areas with Los Alamos and White Rock, as well as the level of service as well. And then we've got a big library of trends that we constantly update as we do this around the country, of things that might be something we want to look at here, particularly with the integrated components that Corey mentioned. Once we get through the information gathering and all of our analysis work, we'll come back in for findings, which is where we will report back what we heard from the public, what the survey results were. Likewise, we'll have one, we'll do all the analysis work on the program analysis and operations and marketing, looking at the budgets and what have you, as well as we'll have a second findings and visioning, which is more on the inventory assessment and level of service. And we'll talk about those preliminary recommendations so that we can come back and start the draft master plan with everybody being on the same page. And then, of course, we'll come back and present the recommendations along with the capital costs and operational costs and timing of those in a draft. And then we'll look for one set of edits back to us after everybody's had a chance to review it to come up with the final and hopefully get that adopted through the commission, and then the implementation starts. And that's where we want to really hang our hat, is putting a plan together that truly gets implemented. All right, I'm going to let Corey talk about some of the things that that we've learned that are in the progress that we will fold into this plan.
So thank you. So just some projects that are currently underway is we've got a BMX track renovation that's currently on hold. We're having to review the findings of an RFP. I've got new lights at Barua Arena. I've been having some focus meetings on Pueblo Canyon conceptual trails, the golf course improvements. When we're also working with the school district on locations for a tennis court tournament site and then a shared gymnasium space. Those meetings will be coming up in later in February. And then some opportunities that I've heard of in my short time here talking with people is how do we incorporate key community health throughout our programming in CSD? How do we incorporate the library? The ice rink cover for extended seasons. Some other items we've heard are camping upgrades to Camp May, renovation of potential artificial turf on multiple athletic fields, pickleball court, splash pad up here, Manala Abilities playground, exercise stations along trails. There's continued conversation with NNSA and LANL and DOE on the conveyance of Rendahog Canyon into a recreation area. We want to have sustainable actions in everything we do. A master plan for the North Mesa Park area. We got some parcels in White Rock that need to be looked at. Cricket pitch, community gardens, lighted playgrounds, a tween center. Again, these are items that are we've heard from the community that we want to keep in mind as we go through, and we also want just to provide some thoughts on what other things that you may consider as we go through this presentation.
Thanks, Corey. So as we look at the system as a whole, we're going to look at 5 elements for a healthy systems analysis. This is just a flow chart that I'm not going to totally go through everything, but we really want to look at why we want to do things, who it impacts, what are positives and negatives. The positives we want to continue and propel in the future, and the negatives we want to help correct. Looking at the community systems and really where they intersect with the park and rec and libraries and the community services division. Looking at their assets to include what the future looks like, and also keeping up on the ones that you already have. We'll look at any procedures and policies that might need to be changed to put this plan in place. And then the fiscal part of it is, the intersection of what resources you have with the wish list that we're going to start with. So the short of it is we're going to look at today and ask you some questions. What are we doing? So what are we doing well? What's already available? Is it working? And if so, we want to keep that or propel that. And how can we improve? So we've got a list of questions here we're going to go through. And so that we can stay on time here, I'm going to put some ground rules out there that this basically is a brainstorming session. And as Corey said at the beginning, we're nowhere near making decisions. We're basically looking for as many ideas as possible to build out this wish list. And we're going to start looking at the themes of what we heard a lot of from a perspective of through all of these focus groups. So for each focus group, once something's heard, it's being recorded and it counts just as much as if we hear it 100 times. So trying to get folks not to repeat the same thing. And we really don't need an editorial today because whether it's, sometimes we get people on here and go, well, I don't agree with that. And we're not here to do that today. We're here to spend our hour getting as much information from you guys as possible. And I also want to point out that you're welcome to chat. We will print those chats out as well. So if you're more comfortable doing that, or if you don't feel like you can get a word in edgewise, chat it in there. And likewise, if we're past a question and you think of something else, go ahead and chat it in there. So, and just so you know, JR is taking notes as well as we're recording this and have the printout. So we're going to make sure we get everything. So, all right, the first couple of questions. What are the current strengths of Los Alamos County Community Services? So what's kind of working well? And then the other side of that, what are some challenges or weaknesses that might not be working well or need to be improved? And with that, we'll just open the floor up. Don't be shy.
Well, I'll jump in. I think we have lots of formal parks and nice parks. We have lots of facilities that for lots of different kinds of groups. So, I mean, there's it's almost dizzying how many different things there are. I'm assuming the library is part of community services, so that's I think an important thing that's done in the community. So I think generally those work well, although as a citizen, I have to say it's pretty opaque just what those things cost and what those activities really cost. And but I guess being a pretty seemingly very wealthy county government, that kind of maybe gets lost sometimes.
Yep, thank you.
I agree with Kevin that we have a lot of things. I don't think we have a good directory of what they are. You have to dig pretty deep to find the things. For instance, we have roller derby, and a lot of people don't know how to get a hold of the team and things like that. So yes, we have a lot of services, but we don't have a good directory of what all those services are.
Okay, so would that also include marketing to the public?
Marketing to the public and organizing all of that. There are some groups like Ministerial Alliance that works on a lot of things for directory. There's the Community Health Council, of course, and the Older Adult Network. And we also have, I'm a chaplain for the police and fire department. We have a chaplain corps. We have a behavioral health response team at the lab. And so there's these different levels of meetings that are going on and things that are happening all separate. I don't think they're as well organized as they could be so that people new to town can tap into the services and all of the things that we have available.
All right. Okay, Robert, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in based on my personal experience here. The library is superb. It's just a wonderful, wonderful place. So I think, in my view, that's one of the major strengths of the county. Also, the Parks and Rec that deal with playgrounds. That's good. I know playgrounds are being upgraded. The one near where I live at Rover Park has been recently upgraded, and it's really crowded. Even in the cold weather, there are kids over there. So I think that's all going well. Under challenges and weaknesses, I would point to the senior centers. It's been very hard during the pandemic for the senior centers to get their job done. And it's revealed a number of weaknesses that Corey is familiar with as far as management structure goes, and for the ability of individuals like myself to have a positive impact on on how they operate. So I'd say the senior centers are something to consider under challenges.
Okay, and the operation of them,
And
basically.
yeah, yes, the operation of them and the management structure that that is currently not very friendly to advocates like myself trying to have positive impact.
Great, thank you. What else?
Are we
Okay.
addressing the challenges and weaknesses as well?
Yes,
That's fine.
each of these slides will have 2 questions and we'll talk about those simultaneously, basically.
I think a real challenge and weakness is the prioritization between all of these various activities and what gets attention and what doesn't. It's one of the things that brought me to this particular focus group is I participated in a focus group having to do with this discussion of a trail or a bike skills thing, where in the scheme of priorities thing, it was pretty apparent to me, it's pretty hard to figure out where that comes from as a priority. Maybe it should be a priority, but there was no real ability to explain it very well. It didn't seem to me as to what drives the projects of the day in this department. And I think one of the real weaknesses I mentioned before is just the really opaque understanding that the public has of the costs of activities in order to be able to kind of understand, well, if we do this or this big project, what does that have to do with what we can't do with regard to other things or not? So it's to me, it's very it's kind of like a squeaky wheel process, the best I've been able to determine as a citizen. And that's, I think, not good.
Okay. Anna, I see your hand.
Yes. So I'm actually for all the county facilities, I'm using the aquatic center. I rent a pool down there. I'm extremely unhappy with their facility management. And you ask our tax monies to build up the new additions, whatever it is. Okay, and then you cannot make the facility fully operational. And then the management is just, I can't even put a words on it. So that is my comment.
Okay, thank you. Jen?
In regards to mental health, when we take somebody to the ER, we don't have anybody there to do a psychological evaluation. We're requiring our medical doctors to do psychological evaluations on people that are taken to the ER. And so as far as mental health goes, I think we have a huge gap in services here, and being able to tap into services and trying to get the people then who are in need of help off of the hill into the services, in Santa Fe being the closest and not necessarily the best. So mental health issues, I think, are a huge deficit that we need to address. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll jump in. One other area of, I think, challenge or weakness is actually taking the plans that are in place and adopted in having some kind of approach to implementing those plans that's understandable from a public standpoint. For example, I've spent decades working in the realm of open space and trails, volunteering effort to try to help there to be an open space management plan, trails management plans. But once the plans seem to get done, it's very difficult to see what's being done about implementing those. Today, we just got an email and I read the county administrator's report of accomplishments. and talks about one of the highest priorities they had was open space, but there's really no discussion in his report of anything that's done to actually implement those management plans that are meant to kind of take care of those spaces and take care of those assets.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on so we can keep going. Anything that comes to mind, you can chat it in or just let us know. The next couple of questions are, what additional programming, activities, and services do you feel should be offered by the community services, and including those areas that they are not responsible for now of this integrated plan, like social services and cultural services? And then what new facilities or amenities would you like to see, and what improvements would you like to see on the ones that exist?
I'll jump in. I don't really have a big thought about there needing to be additional programming, activities, and services. I think what I'd like to see is more I'm not opposed to there being, and I know there's probably needs for additional things, but I'd like to just see more, an equal concentration at least, or maybe even more of a concentration on doing the things that are already out there well in, again, implementing plans that have been built to help those activities to work well and facilities to work well before starting building new, even more facilities and things like that. So again, it doesn't mean to me that we can't or shouldn't look at doing new and different things, but we also need to make sure we're giving at least or maybe even more attention to really the things that are already underway.
Great. Thank you. So kind of take care of what you got before you try to do more.
That's right.
Okay. What else?
I'll be happy to jump in again.
Sure.
I wanted to address the programming and activities part. As I mentioned, the library is really good, and they have expanded their programming and activities that they offer for both children and adults, and I wanted to applaud that. And if they can do even more, that would be great. I think they're filling an important need in the community that other organizations are not right now. So that would be good. As I mentioned about the senior center, it seems to be lacking now, particularly in the programming area. And so that's an area where they could improve a lot with some more encouragement from the public and from having a management change of structure that would make it more responsive to what citizens like myself are interested in doing. As far as facilities go, we are really blessed in Los Alamos to have great facilities. I don't have any specific suggestions there, except what was mentioned by Corey earlier about having a tennis complex that's capable of hosting tournaments. As a tennis player, it has been really awkward to host a tournament and not be able to have everybody on site at the same place, but rather to have to send players out to other courts. It kind of loses a team spirit when that happens. So if there could be one tennis complex in town that can accommodate tournaments, that would be a significant improvement. I'll stop there.
Great. Thank you.
In the beginning of the pandemic, one of the county councilors, David Israelovitz, wanted to put together a program to help people that might fall through the cracks, as it were, to help with, delivering groceries, things like that. We put a call out to volunteers and received over 60 volunteers that would help with different things. And we put together a program called All Together Los Alamos. We were asked to help with things for the school system and to help with a number of people who were isolated within their homes and unable to come out for whatever reason, pandemic aside. And that program was not utilized as much as we had hoped it would be or could be. It was hard to reach people regarding that. But I think something along those lines, because our community social services is not able to go and like knock on the door to say, what can we help you with for homebound individuals in the area. And our police department can only do so much as a welfare check. So there's a huge gap for the people who are not able to reach out and contact community social services. I think a program like that is permanent and sustainable would be very helpful, like the All Together Los Alamos group.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Again, anything comes to mind, chat it in or let us know. Okay, next couple of questions. Are there any portions of Los Alamos County that are underserved by the Community Services Division? And who are the key partners and stakeholders in the community with regards to assisting with this integrated master plan?
Well, I'll jump in again. I don't really know. I'm sure there are underserved aspects of the community, but I'm not really up on that. Something that I see a lot that the county in general has started to do some, I think, positive things for, which I don't think is in the community services purview. Maybe it is dealing with issues of housing for workforce and lower income people in the community. I think that's an area that's been apparent to me as just I've observed thing. I think the getting input from people that are not necessarily property owners is probably difficult, but would be very useful. I sense there's a lot more transient with the way the lab seems to be run in recent years, of people coming and going that don't necessarily maybe buy into the community, but nonetheless, who knows, maybe they would buy more into the community if we knew more about what has them moving in and out and going. So I think that group of people that really aren't necessarily property owners and maybe as a result are less likely to be in the know or be involved is one to really try to capture.
Okay.
I work with a lot of people who are underserved in the fact that they are below the normal income group of Los Alamos. And so they find that the services are very limiting. And who helps with that is we have a wonderful group called, well, we've got a couple, the LA Cares and also the self-help group. And they are very wonderful. And they also are in control of the money that we get from Salvation Army that we get during the bell ringing time at Christmas. But those are usually one time a year assistance. And so once they've utilized those particular groups, then there's really nothing else. We also have a large community of the Russian population and Mandarin population. And we don't have a lot of interpreters to help us when we have somebody from that community and in the ER, or somebody who is in needing assistance, we don't have interpreters that are easily accessible. Family Strengths Network helps us with that. They work a lot with the different cultures in the area, and I don't think we really address that. And I think that would be very helpful to have more assistance with our many cultures, and also our rather large population of people who are in need of food and assistance with rent and things like that. So to have some more money and planning put towards that would be helpful.
Great. Is there any type of scholarship program for the lower income to allow them into programs locally? And then my next question is, a lot of times those are funded through foundations. Could be a community services foundation or Park and Rec foundation, where people can actually get a tax deduction. It sometimes is a very good list for local businesses to be on. If you publicize it a couple times a year, and everybody that sees that recognition knows that these folks are assisting that population. Any of those exist? I mean, Corey, you might know.
Well, there is a Los Alamos Community Foundation, and then we also have a recreation program that you can access for funds for events. I don't think we do a very good job of sharing that out with the public. We probably should do a better job with that.
Okay, and is it at that point, is it a write-off to you, or is there actually money that come in to help fund those programs?
There's money that actually comes in to fund it.
Okay, and how is that fund funded?
It's primarily by donations.
Okay, great. And is it a 501c3?
No.
Anna, I see your hand.
Okay, so I'm talking about a swim because I'm a swimming coach. So in the new for swimming in the national wide for USA, if you're low income kid, they have a almost waive your registration fee for US swim. And as a local at the New Mexico state levels, when those kids go to swimming meet, and then they almost don't have to pay their meet fees. But when come on the pool levels, I have hands for kids actually need assistance with the pool missions. You know, they're paid the door fees. I look into it. I can't locate any funding to assist those low income kids. So that's my comment.
Okay. Well, you might have heard one today from Corey. Okay, anything else? How about any key partners and stakeholders? And I'm going to say maybe excluding the folks that we're including in the plan, the integrated part of this. But Jen, we've recorded a lot of your partners and integrated, but is there stakeholders? Are there any additional ones?
I would say our primary ones are LA Cares, who also helps with scholarships and different things. Self-Help, which is the One Time and Salvation Army, Family Strengths Network, and Los Alamos Family Council. And Los Alamos Family Council is our only mental health services in one place, and they go after scholarships and additional money for people who don't have the money to help with co-pays. So that would be the additional one that I can think off the top of my head.
Okay, and I see you chatted in YMCA has scholarships. Is there potential partnership with the YMCA to include in this group, or are they pretty siloed there?
Scholarships to the YMCA is funded through one of their, it's called the Red and Black Ball, and a number of other things that they do, but mainly for, it is, I think, specifically for scholarships to the YMCA.
Right, to membership. Okay.
Yeah.
think one other group that may not, I don't know if it's part of your list already, is a small business community. I think there are a number of different things that community services does that if there was really good coordination could be beneficial to that group. Or I don't really know how much the community service department looks as that group as a key stakeholder and potential partner. So I would encourage you to work on trying to get input from them.
Great. Amy, I see your hand.
Yes, I was just going to comment on what Jen Bartram said about the YMCA and scholarships. And yes, there are scholarships available, not very widespread in my experience. And I would just like to say that I would like to see a community type of gym available for all people in the community, that they don't necessarily need any kind of scholarship. They can attend. We have low-income families that are unable to access the YMCA, and it would be nice to have recreational facilities that are open to all.
Okay. And when you reference gym, are you talking about a gymnasium or like the fitness type of going to the gym to work out?
I'm talking about a gymnasium like for basketball practice and
Okay.
Multiple use.
Great. Thank you.
And I would suggest that that kind of is a good example of what I was just trying to say about small business community, because, you know, I don't know, we have quite a few fitness and other kinds of businesses and facilities. And to the extent there are scholarships, if they can also be or potentially be done so that those scholarships can be used with those businesses in those facilities. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but it might be certainly something to explore. And I think our small businesses need every bit of assistance they can get without really creating kind of more of a fragmented landscape in terms of fitness kinds of activities, things like that.
Great. Okay. Last couple of questions here. What are the key issues and values that Los Alamos County Community Services need to consider and that we do as we put this plan together? And what do you consider the priorities that need to be considered in this plan? So if we couldn't have everything, what would be the one thing you'd like to see this plan do?
From my standpoint, if there was just one, if I had to pick one thing, it's really get a handle on implementing all of the plans that are already in place and have been approved and have benefited from lots of public input to put in place and concentrate on how are those going to be fully achieved.
Great. Okay, Anna, I see your hand.
Yes, I would like to see all the facilities, they're gonna be not only relied on their tax monies, they're supposed to be self-efficiency. So, and it needs to be better managed, because otherwise, if a county gets more and more facilities and it's poorly managed, that's gonna put a great burden on our tax monies. So whenever you're concerned about it's community services, and the first one, the user has to pay majority of them instead of put like average every taxpayer. So the charge has to be reasonable. Second, if you manage those facilities, then you need to take responsibility, not make sure it's well managed. It's not a kind of put a more burdens the taxpayers. That's what my comment.
All right, Jen.
If I had one wish, I'd like to see Los Alamos have what Bernalillo County just put together, where everything is a one-stop shop. and to include mental health services, but also for domestic violence or a shelter for the homeless, to help with services along those lines, and have it as a one-stop shop so people don't have to dig around to find all these services. They can go to one building and have everything there and have it available for everybody who is in need of it, and to have the money so that the programs are not overlapping. Everything is in coordination with each other.
Robert?
Yeah, so I think that a key issue is for the community services to be responsive to citizen needs, and they are pretty well right now. As I mentioned, there is a problem with one place that needs to be fixed to make it more aligned and integrated with the others. And I second what Jen had said about mental health issues, which is also connected to physical health issues with the pandemic that we're dealing with. I think a lot of mental health issues that I'm seeing among my friends are in part because of physical health issues. So trying to keep Parks and Recs as being a robust program and trying to add the mental health that Jen was talking about should be pretty high priority.
Thank you. Kevin?
I think the idea that things can pay for themselves is a great idea, and love to see things go in that direction. But I don't think that that's one of the things that's of high importance or a high value. Although it is important to be able to explain, what is being done and how it's benefiting people. And so in terms of being able to explain what are the costs of activities, how many people utilize those activities, so that you have some sense of cost benefit is important. But I don't think it's important at all for the golf course or the stables or any of those things to have to pay for themselves out of their activity fees or any other of the library or anything else.
Okay. Amy, you had your hand up earlier. Or you still have some input, or was it said?
I think it was covered. Thank you very much. And I just,
Yes.
I would agree with what Jen noted in terms of a one-stop shop. I think that's a great idea.
Great. Okay. Anna?
So,
What?
Okay, your hand's up. Any
Oh,
addition
I didn't
or?
forget loaded. I don't have
Okay.
anything.
I'm going to go to Robert.
yeah, I had some additional input, which I'm not sure fits under county community services, but I hope it does. The youth sports in Los Alamos, pretty much across the board, all the sports are highly organized by adults, by mostly parents and coaches, to coordinate and make sure they have time on fields and courts and that sort of thing. And in my experience growing up, there was a lot of informal, what I'll call sandlot sports that were played. And that's, I believe, where I developed a lot of my leadership skills as a young person. And that's not happening in this town at all. And I personally tried when I had young children growing up in Los Alamos, I tried to motivate what I called sort of random sports, where kids would kind of show up, whatever the sport was, football, baseball, soccer, and just sort of self-organize and play. And that never happened. I was not successful in motivating that. But if the county community services department could somehow facilitate sandlot sports among grade school and middle school kids mostly, I think that would really help the culture of our youth by allowing them to use sports as a vehicle to learn how to lead, how to choose up teams, how to respectfully develop a set of rules for however many people showed up to play on that particular day.
Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of a lost art. I'm with you. It's how I grew up. But the drop-in sports, as we call it, unfortunately takes several kids. And back when I was around and doing that, we didn't have the electronics and the games that we had to compete with. And right now there's just a national movement to get kids outdoors and active. And we certainly are going to put that on the list and see if that can transpire there.
Yeah, it may be that Parks and Rec can help facilitate this by having certain courts and playing fields available for drop-ins at a particular time. I know
Right.
that the adult tennis community does that. We have certain drop-in times when anyone can show up and just get put on a team. And if that can somehow be found to work for kids through the efforts of the community services, that would be wonderful.
Right. And usually gyms are pretty easy to do. One of the things on the list of thoughts for fields is when you go to artificial turf, then it's very easy to have those drop-ins where they won't tear the fields up and what have you for games, and you don't have to rest them and all that stuff. So there's a lot of things, and we certainly are going to look at all those to see what works the best there for Los Alamos. Amy.
Yes, I just want to tag team on what Richard was talking about in terms of the drop-in sports on outdoor fields. That was one of the things that I was thinking about in terms of the gymnasium. We really don't have a community gymnasium for families to just drop in and play and have an informal game of basketball or soccer or indoor kind of sports when it's bad outside. The schools do make their gymnasiums available to the YMCA program, the after-school programs, but there really is nothing unless you're a member of the YMCA for families over the weekends.
Great. Jen?
Pajarito Environmental Education Center, our peak, what they have done, and it's highly successful, is what's called the Passport Program. And they have 3 of them set up where you pick up a passport and it has all these different trails, and you do a rubbing on the passport to prove that you've done the trail. And then you hand it in and you get certain prizes for every, 5 or 10 that you do. And when you complete, you get a grand prize. Highly successful, very, very motivating for people to get out on the trails. And they're working on a 4th one now.
Great.
Mhm.
Okay, well, we're approaching our time here, so I want to thank everybody and appreciate your time. Going to, well, all of a sudden now I'm not advancing. There we go. So about our next steps, I mentioned the open public input webinar, which will be a Zoom webinar. So it will take registration. And like I said, we can take up to 500. You're all welcome to join that. I saw in the chat, Kevin, that you were asking if you were going to be invited to it. We are going to provide a link to Corey to publicize that everywhere. So that link is available to anybody that captures it. And then you would go to the link and register. And that also will keep you informed down the road if we do more webinars, because we'll have a email list of folks. Then we're also going to, as we just planned today, we'll be back probably, looks like February 22nd to maybe do a workshop with the county commissioners. Since this week we were going to be on site and couldn't, that'll give us a day to tour around. I personally have done a couple of consulting projects down in Los Alamos, so but I haven't been there in a few years, so this will be good. Then in March, our crew will, our landscape architects and GIS folks will do that inventory assessment I talked about in March. After we finish this public input and probably the workshop with or work session with the county commission, then we'll put a statistically valid survey together. It will be a randomly distributed mail survey that will have a one-time code to go online or to fill it out snail mail wise. We will also, a few weeks after it comes out, because we would prefer the statistically valid one to be filled out, we will again put the same survey online, open for everybody, and have that link again distributed any way, shape, and form to the community. They'll be tallied separately, but compared, and we find that they're usually pretty close. And then, as we talked about, we'll do virtual finding presentations probably in April. There'll be a couple of them. One that'll be focused on kind of the survey and the analysis work of the organization, and then the second one's going to be strictly on the inventory assessment and the level of service analysis. And then from there, we'll come back and start the draft report and distribute that. And from there, we'll present mostly the recommendations and the costs and all that kind of stuff. So any questions? Any last comments?
Well, I just wanted to thank everyone again for taking time out of your day. If you want to keep up with this project, if you'll go to the Maine County webpage, hover over the government and go to the right, there's a tab that pops out that says projects. Click on community services projects. There's a button for the integrated community services master plan. You can see our public involvement plan. All of the meetings that we're doing with the public are there. There's the recording, just like we've done here. This actual meeting will be loaded up probably tomorrow or Thursday morning. But again, you can keep track with what other people are saying about this if you would like. And then I just want to reemphasize again that we're really, really early in this process. And this is one of multiple points where you'll get to chime in and share your thoughts on doing this. My desire is to do what some of you thought today, is to get everything on a list and then have a community conversation about what the priorities are, so that we can all march forward in a singular direction based on community needs, county council strategic goals, and make sure that we're a little more efficient in some of the project management that we have not done such a great job, in my opinion, with over the years. It's not fun for something that should take 6 months that it takes 10 years plus to get done. So again, thank you so much for your time.
Great. And then recent plans from all the different agencies that we are going to go through and pull out the things that match up with implementation, and certainly endorse those plans to move forward into implementation, and then possibly the areas that don't dovetail with this plan. But looking to gain some information from all those and help propel those to implementation. So, all right. Thanks again. Anything comes up, shoot Corey an email and he'll shoot it to me, and we'll throw it in the magic hat.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.